recording, and I'm gonna spotlight Tamara.
Oh,
So Tamara, I'm gonna give it to you so that you can share
yeah,
why did we set it up as rebranding dyslexia in the first place, where your passion around dyslexia is coming from, and maybe just also share a little bit about who you are and what you've been doing with HOI Foundation.
for sure. And thank you everybody for joining today. My God, I see myself really big, so I'm going to share my presentation to not have to look into my own face all the time. Let's see if I can set this going. Let me see. So I hope you can see this as I can see it. Great. And then I see just a little bit of me and a lot of you, so that's much more fun. Um, Yeah, so I'm Tamara Vreeken. I thank you for sharing a little bit about yourself. To just also for me to see who we have in this meeting, and so I have the opportunity to focus a little bit on the topic that you want to talk to or talk about. Or but actually, we're going to talk about rebranding dyslexia, and to introduce myself. So this black and white picture, and you see this little girl in the back sitting on a chair. This is me when I was about 4 or 5 years old, and I really realized at that time already that I was a bit different than the rest. I felt out of place often, very insecure as a very young age, very anxious and rather be quiet in the back. And this just went through my whole school career. I'm 52 now, so this was beginning year 70s. And in Holland, I had no idea what was wrong with me. So I couldn't read or write or calculate at all. And so they thought I was dumb and lazy, and I started to believe I was dumb and lazy. My mom actually said, I don't recognize that at all. She actually told me a few months ago that she brought me to school for years crying. I didn't want to go to school, and she had to bring me in Holland. You have to bring your child to school, so she had to. Um, she didn't realize, she didn't thought I was dumb, so she was trying to find out what was wrong with me, and so she did lots of research. I was tested from the age of 6, 7 till 9, 11. Between that time, then suddenly she found a friend from America, and this lady said, well, we call it dyslexia in America. And she was, what is this? Actually, when we found out, my father actually started to think, maybe this is also my story. And so we found out that half of his family, my father and his family, is dyslexic, and my brother is dyslexic. And so there's my journey started to change a little bit. We found out it had nothing to do with being not intelligent, just different way of learning. Actually, my mom was really an advocate for extra time at school, and she did a lot to help us out. And then I got 3 wonderful children, as you can see in this picture. It's Emma, Tobias, and Sarah. And Emma and Tobias are 19, they're twins, and Sarah is 21. So I finally got them all through school because they're all dyslexic. I scored 100%. And so I made my kids into these wonderful, wonderful persons with great minds. And I truly believed at that time that when I had to bring them to school, that it's going to change for them. It's going to be a different way for them. I mean, we know about dyslexia. There is extra time. You don't have to fight for it, I thought. And then in school, I saw them go down with reading and writing, but also with their self-esteem. And that was one of the most hard things to see, that your kids felt like I felt, dumb, different, out of place. And it shook me. I really, really wanted to give them a school time full of learning and pleasure. And I saw that fail. And so I started to look in Holland, who's working on dyslexia and self-esteem, who's doing that, and nobody did, or I couldn't find it. And I'm in Amsterdam. I know our country is very, very small, but I'm in the middle of where things are happening, right? And I couldn't find it. And in the meantime, I was working at a graphic design company for many years. I was operations director. I made my career. All the time I thought, I don't know, somebody's going to figure out that I am not able to do this, but I'm here. I don't know how this happens. The imposter syndrome really hit me hard, and I still had self-esteem issues. And so the last thing I wanted for my kids is having self-esteem issues. The whole spelling thing and reading thing, I knew it's going to be okay. I was okay. I am okay with reading and spelling. So I had to do it myself. And in 2016 or 2015, I met Stephanie Raber, as Lana said, and she said to me, listen, we're telling the half of the story of dyslexia. We're not telling the whole story. We're only focusing on the things that we cannot do. And we should focus on the things that we can do so we can resolve the things that we cannot do. And this blew my mind. She said, we have to rebrand dyslexia. We have to tell the whole story. And I'm there listening to her, and I'm thinking, my God, I know about rebranding. I've been doing that for 20 years. Let's do it. And so I just quit my job and started the HOI Foundation. Actually, the H, the O, and the I doesn't stand for anything. It's just a concept. I have this three-dimensional, wonderful logo. Thank you, Marnix. I think I saw you. It's just the concept that these three letters in the alphabet, you can just swap around and it's still a H. And it's the same with the O and the I, and in Holland, actually, hoi means hello, and it's very uplifting and happy. So wonderful name. And so our journey started. How are we going to start? What do we want to do? What is our mission? We started with, okay, why are we telling half of the story of dyslexia? And so our journey started with what are we telling now? And it's actually the medical model. And maybe you know all about it already, but the medical model says, this is a brain that has difficulty with reading and writing, and it's in the brain. It has these three spots in the brain that need to be activated when you're reading, and in the brain of the dyslexics, it's not that simple. And so they approach it on this medical model, and I think truly, and saying it's a disability, right? And I truly believe that lots of things made possible. I mean, we do have extra time in the schools in Holland, and we do have lots of research on that, and we have remedial teaching. So wonderful. It wasn't there in my phase 0.0 dyslexia in my school. I mean, they had no idea, right? So there is progress, and that's wonderful. But not everything is resolved, as we were talking about. I mean, the fact that we're saying to these kids, you have a disability, and I heard it from others as well today, right? It does something to you. You're not normal. You're not general. Learned helplessness. I don't know if you know about this, but learned helplessness is something a bit bigger than the mindset thing, the growth and the fixed mindset. I don't know if you heard about that, but the fixed mindset says something like, I don't think I can do it. Learned helplessness is more that you've been, I don't know the English word for it, but lots of times you've been in a situation that things don't work as you want, like failure all the time in school. And so during this process of failing and feeling different, this means that the kids, and every kid has this, and the dyslexic kids just fail a lot, right, at school. They start to realize that nothing and nobody can help them. They've tried and tried over and over again, and it doesn't work. So learned helplessness is a really big kind of problem that you cannot overcome this, and you just kind of stay fixed. And very big problem, shame. I see this so many times. To be ashamed of using, your tools to help you out, because it shows you that, the others are thinking you're different than the rest. Shame that you aren't able to read out loud as quickly as the others. Shame is a really big issue for many of us. Many of us, same frustration. Why can I not learn like the others? Why can I not do it like the others? The others seem to be fine learning this, why cannot I not do it? And of course, all this comes together with low self-esteem. So not everything is resolved, and this is actually what we wanted to resolve. There's this interesting thing, and I truly want your opinion after this little presentation of mine, but many children, parents, teachers are saying you have dyslexia, but you are so much more than your dyslexia. Yeah, you could say that, but to have something feels like a diagnosis. It's the same. It feels like there's something wrong with me. I have it, but I'm so much more than that. So that's all in my mind and all in our vision. Dyslexia 1.0. It brought us things, but it didn't resolve everything. So if we want to do the next phase, Dyslexia 2.0, it's based on this neurodiversity model. And of course, you know a lot about this. But just to bring you up to speed, maybe, I always use just a couple of very fixed facts. I mean, everybody has challenges and strengths, right? It's just if you put us in this situation that we have to learn to, as a fish learn to climb a tree, we think we're stupid. So I think that's very interesting that if we approach it like everybody has challenges and strengths, we're just focused on our challenges most of the time in school and work situations. And then we need different talents to complement each other. If we want to set up a team, we want to have this set up, not that everybody does the same, but we want everybody to do a little bit different, so we have a big, strong team to move forward. Actually, we need this as a human species to go forward, right? You know about it. I think the work from Helen Taylor is wonderful. If you don't know it, please have a search it. It's complementary cognition theory. And she has this scientific approach on this. So please go and look it up. And then we're all different. All dyslexics are different. We are different outside, from the outside, we all look different, but in the inside, it all works a bit different. And I think that's such a simple fact, right? So there is no standard brain. It doesn't exist. But school is made like that, right? School is made like we need to teach these children, and within so many training months, they have to do this and this and this. And if you aren't able to do that, well, there's something wrong with your brain. No, the system doesn't fit our brain. That's the only conclusion we can take. So what happens if we are telling the whole story? We move from this medical model into the neurodiverse model, from dyslexia 1.0 to the next phase, dyslexia 2.0, in which we're saying, okay, we don't have an average and then all these disabilities, all these different labels. No, we're saying we have this neurotypical brain, and everybody is a little bit different in that neurotypical brain, and we have these neurodivergence brains. And together, it's necessary. We need all these brains to move as a species. And I think that approach is so different than we are doing right now. And that's telling this whole story. So then if we do that, if we move to that neurodiverse model, we also resolve these little last important parts. We're not saying it's a disability anymore. We're saying it's a differently wired brain, and it has challenges for sure, and it has great talents and strengths. So that's the whole story. And then so these kids and and us as dyslexics, we don't just focus on our challenges, we also have knowledge on our strengths. And this brings motivation. I mean, if you know your strengths and you can use them with your learning, and you know how to use it and support your challenges, then suddenly there is some motivation to learn because it's your way to learn. And then that builds on your self-esteem. You're valuable, just as valuable as the rest. And so then we move into from having dyslexia to I am dyslexic. This is how my brain works. And just like the other brains, I have challenges and I have strengths. And I want to excel in my strengths. And I want you to support my challenges. And I want you, or me, I know how to support my challenges. And this is, I think, so powerful. I think this is telling the whole story. So if we look into HOI, the vision is, of course, to tell to say that we have this differently wired brain, to never ever say we have a disability. We do have challenges, but it's not a disability because we don't fit in this man-made educational system. No, there's nothing wrong with our brain. It just has challenges and strengths. And then to empower every dyslexic to have this self-esteem, feel proud of this brain that we have, and explore our talents and use our talents so that the world can benefit of them. And I think this is also a message that you can bring to your employer. And so the strategy is to rebrand, to tell this whole story. Most of our basis started with this book, Dyslexic Advantage. I don't know if you know it. If you don't know it, read it. It's there to listen as a listening book. So go. We made it into Dutch because when we started to read it, it felt like I was reading my brain. I was suddenly understanding my brain. They talk about 4 different strengths that is not of dyslexic. So everybody has some form of visual, ruimtelijk, help me out.
Spatial.
Visual.
Spatial, yeah.
Visual strength, but dyslexics are really good at it. And then you have these 4 strengths, but you can, one might be the strength that you recognize the most. So please read this book if you don't know it. It's the base of what we do, and we do a lot of different things. So we do programs for children, events for children. We have a podcast. We have for parents and educational people. We have different programs. We have the week of dyslexia in the first week of October, and we do have events and workshops and coaching for grown-ups and business. There is this week of dyslexia and the 1st of October till the 8th of October. There's some online, but I'm afraid it's most in Dutch. So I don't know, for the Dutch people here, yeah, but for the others, might be a bit harder. Well, I have just a little bit of time, so I stop here. I have so much to tell always, but I'm very curious about your stories and your questions, and I hope that I can answer some of, or we can all both answer each other's questions. If you do have any questions for me and you don't want to just send it out there today, you can also email me. Lana, is this something that you were looking for?
So for those who are interested to voice out your questions, feel free to share it, unmute yourself. For those who are more comfortable in typing your questions, feel free to type it through chat. And if you want a more personal question directly to Tamara, you have her email that was shared a while ago. So questions and maybe before the questions, Tamara, thank you for framing that, right, of like there's an evolution in how we understand things now.
Right.
And I guess there's also the we don't know what we don't know, right? So in the context of how it is during those times, given that the awareness was not yet there,
Yeah.
so people were just going with what they knew.
Yeah, like my mom. My mom is an
Exactly.
advocate for just getting it into this disability corner, because then it started to get some help there. So she was just
Exactly.
fighting for being it like a disability, which is
Yeah.
just what you're saying. From that time, it was a very good decision, and we needed to go from dyslexia 0.0 to 1.0 at that time.
Exactly. And this is also where we see, like, the discrepancy also within cultural settings, right? Of like, there are even countries or cultures where this is even seen as, hey, this is not allowed at all, right? So there are people who are persecuted because they're so different.
Yeah, actually,
Um,
I was giving a talk at Tuesday, no, Wednesday, for Indonesian organization, and 250 Indonesians went into this meeting. It was very interesting. Half of them were teachers, half of them were parents, and parents were just explaining to me that in Indonesia, you feel as a parent that you did something wrong. That's why your kid cannot learn to read and write. Or the teachers just didn't know what to do, and they sent them off to go back to home because they didn't know what to do with these kids. So they're very much, not all, but some were still in the 0.0 era. So I said to them, skip the 1.0 and just go to the 2.0, right? And try to bring that whole story in yeah, and focus on the talents, and make sure that you realize that these brains are valuable.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's definitely in the cultural context. It's, and also, Alana, still there were the same questions over and over. So how can I support my child? It feels different. And
Mm.
so these questions are always kind of the same all over the world. We want to support our kids.
Yeah. It's really coming from a place of care, right? And
Yeah. Yeah.
love. And this is why it's important for us to also acknowledge that, yeah, by bringing more awareness to this is really important, because then, yeah, when we are more aware, we can then also look at possibilities, right? And explore, okay, how can we approach this differently? um as you know, with Neurodiversity Foundation and Neurodiversity Education Academy, we've been so big on promoting what's wrong with you, mainly because that, like what you shared, our brains, our brains are wired to just see the problems, right?
Hmm.
That's our evolutionary part, right? Of like, as cavemen, we had to use that part of our brain to think of safety and threat, and, oh, what's the problem in my area right now. And
Hmm.
fortunately, us modern men have not caught up with that, right? So we're still geared into I see Paul, would you want to unmute yourself?
No, no, it was because you said men rather than people. It's like,
People,
yeah, I know we're
sorry.
behind. I know we're behind the game here. I apologize. I'm trying to drag them along.
Mankind is my reference.
Mankind, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry about that. Not just
No, it's
a gender thing.
no, but I mean, just Anyway,
But thank you for calling me out on that, Paul. This is what we do here in our in community gatherings, like, so yeah, this is interesting in terms of, I guess, I do have a curiosity, Tamara, in terms of successes, of like, what do you think, for teachers, let's frame it for teachers, for teachers who are starting out in this journey of moving away from the medical model, what has
Hmm.
been the what's this, you think, what has been the deepest mindset shift that allowed for other things to also follow for them, like, in your
I mean,
conversations with
it's
teachers?
it's. I think the biggest shift that I see in teachers when they understand this neurodiverse model is that they are thinking in possibilities instead of thinking in things that cannot. So instead of this kid cannot read, you're trying to figure out what is the route to the kid that can read, but also to see the possibilities in what this kid can do next to reading and all the challenge that they have. I think that's not only for dyslexics, it's for all the kids in the class, right? I mean, dyslexics or other neurodivergent people, but all kids. I think in the Dutch system, we're very used to not look into the possibilities, but just, you know, want them to go through the school system. If you do it a bit different, then they have this complete kind of idea of, oh my God, problems on my route. This is going to be hard. I think I see teachers talk to the kids, suddenly ask them questions. How do you want to learn? Do you want to draw when I'm explaining something, because then your brain gets information better? It's just the way that they take the kids more serious, and they're curious. I think the curious is a very, very exciting new thing for them. And then they see that if they take these kids serious in what they need or want, then suddenly these kids feel serious and taken serious and grip on learning, and then they excel.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna, yeah, I would want to, you know, for those who have questions, feel free to, either type it in or ask your questions by unmuting yourself. Then in the next bit of our time together, I will be putting you in small breakout groups wherein, yeah, just after listening to what Tamara has shared, what's coming up for you, you know, what's bubbling up, are there specific insights that you're getting, or your own experiences, for example, you know, are there things that are also, you know, shedding light to your own experiences? So what's the main factor that's bubbling up for you that you would like to share with, with the other people in the room that you'll be sharing with? And we'll have about, I would say, 10 minutes for that, and then we go back into a main group again to wrap things up, harvest what did you hear, what was shared, and then we'll have our checkout. So that will be this next part. Tamara, anything to say while I'm adding people in the room?
Yeah, just a little bit, because we're talking about education quite a lot, but Nat was sharing something about, wanted to shift jobs. I think that's also a question I get a lot, is how do I approach my new boss in saying, hey, I'm dyslexic, here I am. How am I going to tell this whole story? And I think that might be interesting also to think about. How do you, and in this group, have you experienced this? Myself, I would definitely say it, but I would say it from this whole story. So I'm dyslexic, and these are my strengths. Start with your strengths. This is why I'm good. I'm an innovator. I'm good connecting with people. I'm flexible. I love to learn, but I love to learn through doing. So I would definitely approach it from the strength point of view, and then maybe I would say, okay, but spelling, or asking me to write whole lots of reports, I would use my tools. Something like that. So I think that can be interesting to not only talk about education, but also talk about working on the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And I see Paul's hand is up. Go for it, Paul.
Well, I just want to Colette posted about what are the common strengths of dyslexia, and literally Tamara's just said learning through doing. Now, for ADHD and dyspraxia, I can talk to the strengths of those. So learning through doing is actually can be hugely beneficial. If I say actually, but ignore the pejorative language, can be hugely beneficial. What other common strengths or reframings would you say there are for dyslexia?
That's a good question. So the book that I showed you, this shows 4 specific strengths, which I love because there are others that have 10 different strengths, or I have to explain.
Well, what are the 4? I mean, yes, the book is on my reading list. I'm going to go with it. But what can you just briefly reel out the 4 strengths, just so we've got some like immediate, tangible things to think about whilst waiting for the book to arrive, or the audio book to be downloaded.
Fantastic. I will try to do it. So I think thinking outside of the box, I think Stephanie, I love the way that Stephanie put it. She says, okay, thinking in a box, where's this box? I don't know where this box is, right? I love doing that because that's how I feel too. Like, what are they talking about this box? You know, in my mind, I can connect so many things together. I have all these new ideas. I sometimes have a hard time getting into this sleeping mode because my brain is always working these new ideas and seeing new connections and having these opportunities, you know, and I cannot easily stop it. So I think having to see these opportunities and see these out of the box ideas, this is something that dyslexics are really good at. And another thing is, so most of the people like to think from step to step, right, to get into this end result. And we see in these dyslexic brains that we do not have this opportunity. So we do not most of the time think from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. We just see the end result. So during work, if there's a problem at the table and you have this meeting and you're listening to this problem, you're thinking, okay, you know, we can just resolve it like that. And then most of the time, I get this a lot from dyslexic, nobody understands this. Because you're already at the end result, you know, very far ahead of the rest because they need these little steps in between. And so there's often miscommunication, although this strength is just this wonderful problem-solving strength. And if you're in a company that understands this and that understands that you can see this, you have this problem-solving brain, then they can use it so much. And then this innovating brain. Another thing is connecting with people, feeling stories. So we love to think in stories often. And it's not, I mean, everybody is different, right? I have to say this. Everybody's a bit different. So the dyslexics are a bit different. So it might be that you understand this idea thing and that you recognize it, but then thinking in stories, maybe a little bit less. But I see this a lot with children, actually, that they think in stories, and these stories come alive in your head, right? It's not just a picture. It's this whole moving video, and it brings you sound, and it brings you feeling, and it maybe brings you smell and taste, and you can just feel it. And so when you're talking, if you're a strong talker, then you are a great motivator for your group, probably, you know, or you're really good in writing with spelling mistakes, but have these wonderful stories that you can think of. So great writers are dyslexics, like Roald Dahl. I love his stories. And then the last one is this visual thinking, this 3-dimensional spatial thinking that many architects are dyslexics, for instance. And so these are the 4 main strengths that you could recognize, 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe 4. And yeah, I hope this brings some recognition already, but definitely read the book.
I've also shared a quick post that we've created on the dyslexic brain of the strengths of dyslexic brain. So
that's a good one.
Put it in the chat. Good. So I'm gonna put you in breakout rooms. We'll now have about 8 minutes. 8 minutes to share. No apologies. 8 minutes to share. You know, what you feel called to share. So again, this is we value confidentiality and we value openness. So feel free to share what you're comfortable with. And we'll see you after 8 minutes.